Well, good evening, Internet, and all our other social platforms that we stream to, because we stream across live to Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. I'm here with my fellow presenter, Gregor,
Hello.
and we are here with our special guest today, Chris Backey from Zebrafish Games.
How you doing, everyone?
Very well, thanks yourself.
Doing well. It's a cold, snowy day here in eastern Nova Scotia. My computer says it's -11, and I believe it.
Wow. Crikey.
So this is a great day to stay inside, talk board games, and play some games, but not go outside. No.
Yeah. I'm not surprised. So I will be hosting and managing all our social media interactions today. So if you're out there across the internet and watching and you have a question for Chris, then please drop them in the chat. I'll bring them up on screen and we'll, hopefully try and answer them as they come in between conversation. In the meantime, can you just give us a very before we do any of that? I just want to pay homage to a couple of little things that are going on in this world at this moment in time. Here, everyone at Diary of a Linking Geek, we are very feeling and aware of what's going on in the world at the moment in time with Ukraine. And I want to send out a heartfelt message out to all of our viewers and family members who have friends and family out in Ukraine at this moment in time. We wish you luck. We send our love and support to everyone. We genuinely mean that. And I think my fellow presenters and guests here will obviously echo that as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And also the detrimental weather that's hitting Australia as well at the moment, because one of our fellow presenters is based there, and they're, presented with some pretty horrific flooding at this moment in time. So we hope you're all safe and well there as well, because they were talking about being moved out of the area while the flooding goes on. So it's quite horrendous out there as well at the moment. So there's some really unpleasant things going on out there, but we send our thoughts and feelings out to everyone. But yeah, so now we've kind of done that, we will carry on with the show and hopefully put a smile on your face as we talk board games and talk board games and talk about print and play, because that's what Zebrafish does, isn't it?
Exactly. And really one of the things that we're doing with Zebrafish and this is all kind of future tense as we're broadcasting this live, what we're looking to make, and the promise here is print and play games with no assembly required. I love print and play games. I love how they're accessible worldwide. I love how it doesn't matter where I am, it doesn't matter where the designer is, as long as I have the internet and a few bucks, I can buy the print and play, I can print it off anywhere I am in the world. And you can get, pretty solid printing services anywhere you go. My biggest challenge with print and play games has been just the number of cards, the number of tiles, the number of resources you need to have to make a good print and play. And there's plenty of Facebook groups and places where you can learn the better ways to make a print and play. Get this kind of cardboard or find this kind of sleeve or things like that. That's a lot of effort. And at what point do we go from I want to make a game to this is a crafting project with the game at the end of the rainbow? So again, the promise with the Zebrafish is print and play games with no assembly required. I want you to be able to go onto the website, pay a few bucks, or having backed the Kickstarter campaign, you've got the game now in hand. All you need to do is print it off, grab a literal handful of components, bring them to the table, and go, right, here are the rules. So for that 5 minutes you might have before your friends come over, you want to show them something brand new you just learned about. You've already printed it off. You grab, a few pawns, a few meeples, some dice, whatever, and you're ready to go.
Yeah. So. No, that's a really good idea, because let's face it, amount of gamers that watch the show and that we all are, we all have meeples, dice, all those kind of components lying around. So if we can use those, then for something like this, that's brilliant. And what inspired this project?
Yeah, so I need to kind of let's get into the time machine here. Several months back, I saw some of my Facebook friends were talking about their upcoming campaign for Voyages. So this is Matthew Dunstan and Rory. Absolutely amazing designers. I backed the campaign myself, had a lot of fun playing Voyages. But they're on Facebook talking about how they're going to be doing this in a few weeks, and I'm just joking with them that, like, you guys stole my idea, because a few weeks prior to that, I had signed a game that was basically a print and play style game where the rules and the game service was all on one sheet. So everything you need to know is just one sheet of paper. You took a colored marker and you're off. And there's an NDA here, so I can't say much more than that. But the gist was that, it was a very simple game where all you needed was one piece of paper and a marker per player. So obviously the publisher route takes a bit longer than the Kickstarting route, but they were talking about how they're going to be going to Kickstarter. I'm like, you guys stole my idea. It's not fair. You're going to beat me to the market with your awesome game. But yeah, so partially from seeing the success of Voyages, and partially in realizing that what you can do when you have a game that goes straight from concept to Kickstarter to end consumer, you completely bypass this manufacturing, shipping, distribution kind of nightmare that we've had in 2021 coming into 2022. And by bypassing what is arguably the most expensive and time-consuming portion of the board game making process, we can cut out a lot of headaches. We can cut out a lot of the stuff necessary to actually get the game into people's hands. So once the Kickstarter funds, once the cards are charged, we can turn around a couple of days later, make sure everyone gets their game, begin adding variants a lot easier than it would be to come up with a whole new expansion, which requires a whole new manufacturing journey, which requires a whole nother shipping and distribution journey. So by going straight to print and play, we cut out this whole segment of stuff that needs doing. And I think that will allow us to turn around with a lot more games faster and come up with more variants. So partially from my own experience, but also partially from this exceptionally well done campaign of Voyages.
So also from like a backer's perspective as well, you'll presume your backers, all those many impatient people out there who want it as soon as possible, actually, they're just going to get it straight away.
Exactly. And that's one thing that I remember thinking as I was backing this on Kickstarter myself. There are, like, the expectation on Kickstarter right now has been you're going to pay $60 for this game plus $20 to $30 shipping. If it's a cheaper game, you might pay more for the shipping than you did for the game. And this is just normal. So exactly. You accept this because it's just how the thing has evolved. You also accept that to some extent it might take a year or a year and a half or 2 years because of COVID and everything else happening. It might take you a lot of time to get to the point where you actually get this game in hand. I want to play this game now. So being able to say, back this campaign, and once the cards are charged a week later, you got a game. And heck, if you want to play it now, the team with Voyages was showing, here's one of the images we can share with you now. Feel free to play this on like an image editing software. I thought that was an absolutely amazing move.
It is an amazing move. I mean, I've seen fellow Kickstarters, fellow content creators getting excited the fact that they've had their Kickstarter arrive after 2 years waiting. And they made a video and they commented and someone actually said, my God, why bother backing the Kickstarter? And I was on the side of the actual Kickstarter company in this instance, purely because you get the story and a bit of the adventure and the updates and the progress on that game. The only downside is, of course, COVID has kind of made that a bit longer than it would normally be. And with the recent introduction of and seeing a lot more print and plays, because companies have been doing these as an interim to say, look, we're really sorry, your game's taken longer. Here's a print and play to kind of keep you happy and keep you grease, and while you wait for your physical copy. And I think that's a nice touch. But what you're doing and offering is even better.
Yeah, and obviously the print and play version for games historically has long been the free thing you give away to entice someone to get the full version. So there was almost like two types or two classes of games here. You had the first class, fully boxed, fully made, and then you had kind of the print and play that was, I don't want to say the run to the litter or the ugly stepchild, but it's the thing you got free to kind of tease you to buying the full. It's the freeware version or the shareware version of that. Exactly. Yeah. So the challenge has been, and the challenge is still to some extent, how do you create value from a thing that people used to get for free? And I think what is going to make, so what's going to make this, what I think the best way to look at it is to judge it as a full game on its own, not a shareware thing for something else. This is you're getting the full game, beautifully done art, not the black and white version, not the low ink version, not the there'll be a low ink version available, but you're not getting the intentionally made crappier version of the print and play to entice you to upgrade to a bigger thing. You're getting the full game, full stop.
Yeah, full experience out of the print and play straight off. No, I think it's a great idea. Yeah.
So the challenge, of course, is keeping the price point low, but also how much game can you get into what we have here, and by necessity, with the promise being no assembly required, that necessarily means no cards. So as I began brainstorming this, I was talking with designers to basically say, am I off my rocker here? Do you feel that there's a possibility for you to make a game without any cards or any prep work to make this game happen? I knew I could do it because I've already signed a game and I have another one, which is behind the scenes right now. But, I knew I could do it, but I wanted to hear from other designers, how do they feel they could take on this challenge? And from these kind of early brainstorming sessions, we realized that you have a lot of things that, one, you could do with paper that you wouldn't ordinarily necessarily do with a card. Just to throw some stuff out here. And for all the designers watching here, I want you to take your basic piece of paper, your basic letters / A4 piece of paper here. And next time, yeah, no, that's okay. But for anyone at home or for anyone watching this, feel free to think about what you can do with this, right? Because what we're looking at is a game where each person might get one sheet, but it's not limited to that. Maybe each person gets 2 sheets. Maybe there's one sheet that everyone gets, and there's a second sheet that's common to everyone. It's just put in the middle of the table. So there's one individual sheet, one communal sheet. Maybe there's 2 communal sheets and then one individual sheet. There's always a question of how much stuff do you want happening here. So we're looking at simple elegance, but we're also looking at innovation. What can you do with a piece of paper? You can write on it. Obviously, you can scribble on it. You can put stuff on top of it. You can fold it. You can tear it. You might be able to get it wet and do something with how, wet drops kind of merge with paper. You might fold it and then tear it so you get a hole in the middle. So thinking about the properties of this this element, thinking about what you can do with some dice. Dice can be rolled, obviously, but they can also mark, a 1 or a 2 or a 3, right? So you have a variable counter of sorts. So we're coming back to some of the very basic things in terms of the use of materials. And I've already seen through some of the submissions some very cool uses of paper. And I can't wait to tell you about that once we have some formal announcements for that. But already we're seeing how people are using paper and basic components to create a new type of gameplay.
Yeah, no, that's great because you're actually open to submissions and ideas, aren't you, through your website?
Yes, absolutely. And we're hoping to announce our first game soon. I will also be basically the team right now. I'm going to be the developer / designer relations. The other member of our team is Tristan Rawson, who is the graphic design / artiste extraordinaire. He's done a few games you've probably heard of, like Pebble Rock Delivery Service, Not So Happy Families. He's done the artwork for Tranquility, Relics of Rajafahara, Cosmic Colonies, Die in the Dungeon, King's Sword, Rune, 3 Laws of Robotics. And he is just an absolutely amazing individual with a brilliant sense of creativity and color.
Wow, fantastic. Yeah. It sounds like you've definitely got some interest there. I've put the website up on screens for people if anyone who wants to go and check that out, because you've got all the information there to sign up and be on your mailing list, as well as submit ideas, haven't you?
Exactly, and it's worth noting that, of course, Tristan and I were both designers in our own right. I currently have 12 signed games. I'm hoping some of them will come out this year, hopefully. But so we're both kind of new to this. I'm kind of new to this publishing world, but I know how designers like to look at publishers and so on. So trying to give them as much information as I can, both to submit, the kind of games we're looking for. And one really good way to do that, in my humble opinion, is to make sure they know, what we're looking for, what we're not looking for, but also the kind of style that we're looking for. Alley Cat does a great job at that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Earlier you were chatting about the fact that obviously because it's print and play, it also makes it cheaper because you're not having to pay for shipping and all that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you try and, for people who might have never bought or played a print and play game before, how do you try and convince them that, people will have an idea in their head that a big box game might cost 60, 70 quid, that, and they'll have an idea of what price to expect. But for something that they're expected to print and play themselves, how do you come up with something that attracts people but still makes it worthwhile for you?
So the price point we're targeting right now is basically your classic cup of coffee. Voyages did well with it. I think it was a 4 quid campaign, an all-in bid for 4 quid or something like that. So yeah, we're looking at the same price points, $4 or $5. And what we're promising for that is a new innovative game that you'll want to play over and over again. It's not going to be Gloomhaven, just because, Gloomhaven is a huge box of games with, 50 campaigns. There's a ton of stuff in a big box. And, of course, but what we can make on, a handful of sheets of paper from a handful of components is a new way to think about games, a new way to play games. And for a cup of coffee, I think it's a totally fair price point for that.
Oh yeah, no, I totally agree. And just going back on the Gloomhaven thing, it may be a very top-rated game, but I still haven't played it. It doesn't appeal to me. It doesn't. You can't appeal to everyone. Even if a game sits at the top of the Board Game Geek, rankings, doesn't mean it's any good.
Exactly. No, I do have one quick funny story about Gloomhaven. I was at a playtesting night. Just a game night in Germany with some friends when I was living there. And we had enough people to kind of split off into 2 groups here. One group was ready to play Gloomhaven, and the other group of people were like, I don't really want to spend that much time on the game. So I was trying to get one of my playtesting games, my games in playtesting, to the table, and I was like, guys, we'll probably play my game twice before they finish setting it up. And that game was called Diffuse. It was a real-time bomb defusal game, semi-co-op with defectors. And Gloomhaven can be an amazing game to the right folk. I ended up getting through it 3 times before they were completely finished setting up and going through the rules and stuff, just because it's a very fast game, very, very simple game to pick up the rules. And once you got into the rules, the quick reset from one game to the next made it even easier to start the next game. So sometimes you just want a quick, simple, fun game that is short. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It makes some fun. Or if it's like a social deduction game, you get into the arguments as fast as you can, and then you go on to something else.
I'm going to tell you that we like little games like this. We even have a term, don't we, Gregor, which has kind of stuck with us, where we call them the amuse-bouche of games.
Yes.
And Gregor came up with that paraphrase,
stuck with us,
and we love
apparently.
it. It stuck with us, yes. Yeah.
Not my doing, I hasten to add.
It kind of help came up with it, but yes, that's how we describe them.
It's fun.
And sometimes
But I totally agree that like it's most of there are situations where big box games work really well, but most of the time, what are you playing most frequently? And especially for I can't imagine what it'd be like to try and print and play Gloomhaven. No,
nightmarish. I think the answer is yeah. So, and if nothing else, I'm thinking also now of the people coming into the board game world, where they're first seeing games. If they've gone to a board game cafe, there are obviously plenty of games on the shelf there, and then of course you have the question of how do you choose one box over another box? You don't know any of these names or the game names, whatever. Oh, that box looks cool. It's yellow. Or you get the recommendation from the staff. There's a gateway section. So how do you pick one game over another game essentially? So that's a whole different question and a whole different set of solutions necessary. But getting people into the table, I think, means making the promise of fun come quickly after. And I hate to use the term, but there's the pain and then there's the pleasure of a game. There's the pain of learning the rule book, of setting the thing up, and then there's the pleasure of actually playing the game, getting into the strategic choices you get to make, figuring out how to screw your neighbors over, figuring out how you move your pieces and score points and stuff. That's what we're here for, especially for a new person as a gamer. I don't thrive on 20 minutes of a teach followed by 20 more minutes of a setup, followed by 5 more minutes of questions, followed by, are we almost done yet? So as a newer player, I may not have the patience for that. So one of the things that I'm doing is called Intro Games. That's just kind of the name of my one-man studio. And when I first started playtesting with that, I basically said to people that are going to playtest this, I'm going to buy you a drink if we take more than 5 minutes to going from out of the bag to playing the game. And in 3 years of pre-COVID real-world testing, I have yet to pay out.
Wow.
I have talked to designers sometimes, and I've said, if you can break my game, I'll buy you a drink. And I have paid out for that.
Yeah, I don't make bets with anyone, that kind of thing. Yeah, that's an easier challenge. Yeah. But no, it's a very commendable. I mean, the idea behind it and the premise is fantastic, and the fact that you've had submissions is also extremely positive. What I was going to ask you was, obviously, are there any of them that you can talk about now, or are you still in for the development of those?
There's one or two games that I think we're going to be signing fairly soon. It's just a matter of making sure everything's on schedule. So nothing to announce yet. Things that I'm definitely looking for, and again, this is on the submissions page if you want to look at it. But what I'm really looking for is the innovative use of paper, the innovative games. I'm hoping to have more than just another roll and write. I'm hoping to see more than just another game where we roll some dice and move some pieces or mark some stuff on a board. I think we as both an industry and I as a publishing company, I think we can find other ways of creating simple, elegant, interesting games with minimal components that anyone can have in their house. And when I say a literal handful of components, that's exactly what I'm going for. If it take the smallest hand you have available to you, be it your partner's or a child's or whatever. If they can grab all the stuff they need with one hand, you're good. If you have the biggest hand in the house and you're struggling to hold on to it, that's probably too many pieces. So a literal handful of components or less. That might be 5 dice or 5 meeples or 5 coins. There's no one specific number that's set. But the gist is that we're trying to keep the number of things, the ask, if you will, to the smallest number possible. So
makes sense.
When you were saying earlier about like the fact that these sorts of smaller games are gateway games, and obviously you talked about sometimes it's a brightly coloured box on the shelf that you pull off or whatever, or that it might be recommended to you by someone at a game store. Do you worry that like with print and play there's going to be like a whole market of people that you're missing out on there, or is it the idea that actually they're getting into games and they're googling and they're going what do I do next, and they can get that instant hit?
So there's definitely a sense of game discovery. Once upon a time, 1980s, 1990s, your friendly local game store was your big source of finding games. Maybe you went to a con, and that was a great place to announce a game. We're seeing now, obviously, COVID has shifted a lot of these patterns. Unfortunately, game stores aren't as popular as they once were. People go to game stores for recommendations, and this is a very easy thing to recommend to someone. There might be, we haven't discussed this internally, but there might be solutions or ways of creating like an anthology down the line where we take all of the games we've combined and then just put them all together as one big file. But what we're not currently worried about too much is the retail side of things, or to some extent the con side of things. There's going to be plenty of opportunities to sell the game both online and to sell the concept of the games in any number of places. I'm picturing a lot of sales coming from people who go, that sounds interesting. And I just have to go to the website, click buy, download.
Yeah. And it cost me the cost of a cup of coffee.
Exactly. And I don't have to drive to the friendly local game store, hope they have it, or if they don't have it, order it from somewhere. I don't feel like I'm selling my soul by using an Amazon or whatnot. So, in the span of 5 minutes, you've got the game and you're ready to play. So
well, we've got a question from one of our viewers. Hi, Simon. He says, speaking of small gateway games, Zombie Dice is a nice, easy to pick up and play game. Would you be looking at possibly creating a game like Zombie Dice, or possibly slightly more components?
Simple answer is Zombie Dice would probably be very close to the handful. I don't remember how many dice Zombie Dice has offhand. I think it's like 10 or 12.
It's 6.
Yeah. So with the number of dice that it is, that would probably fit in a single sort of hand. Obviously, we would want to try to move away from a feeling or a core loop and experience that's already kind of out there. But there might be another sort of press your luck system of dice rolling that creates a new experience based on what you can do with the dice, what you can do with paper, things like that. So as you're playing, maybe you fold the paper or tear it to simulate hit points lost or something like that. So the simple answer is I think that the number of components is necessarily limited to what you can hold in a hand. And part of that just comes back to how much I'm asking a player to contribute from their own personal stash. Designers will have a ton of stuff. I'm at my mother-in-law's place now. They might have some dice around here somewhere. They might have some coins to use. I don't want people to have to kind of go through a bunch of different places just to find the few things that they're going to need. So the fewer things needed, the better.
Your challenge, Chris, as someone who loves Monopoly, is to come up with a game that only involves that you can play just using the core Monopoly pieces.
Yeah,
that would be a challenge. That's something you can find in more households than dice.
That's
probably.
absolutely true. That's absolutely true. And some of the games, one of the games that I'm making myself is actually, that might be one of our first titles, is a game that just requires the pages and some markers. So no dice, no meeples, no other components. Just have a uniquely colored marker for every person.
Yeah, it's not too dissimilar from, I'm thinking that like Fake Artist in New York, one of the little Oink game boxes, where, I mean, it's nice when you have it in the little box and it has the official paper, but realistically you could just play that with a bunch of different coloured pens and some paper.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, Simon's like Monopoly elements or lots and lots of Lego.
Yes. Yeah. Now, and again, So Monopoly is a great box to borrow bits from and sometimes put them back. The Legos, definitely, obviously, if you have a lot of Legos, would be fun to use them in some way. I probably would want to avoid using anything either trademarked or very specific like that.
Yeah.
When I say a disc, it might be a coin or just something else that is small and maybe even round, something that can track how many hit points you have or how much something is worth or whatever. But we're really coming back to the paper, because the paper is what you're printing off. It's the primary thing we'll be designing and creating the art for. And again, paper has two sides. It can be folded, it could be torn, it could be cut, it could be made wet. there's lots of different ways to use paper, and we're going to come back to the paper being the thing that really creates some of the innovation in the game. The dice and the other bits that come with the game, or that you have to find yourself, certainly will have a use and be a useful tool. But yeah, coming back to the paper.
Yeah, no, it does make sense. I come back to the point that I made earlier, and I know I'm going back to it, so I do apologize. But we see print and plays as part of Kickstarters, and what you're proposing here, just for anyone new coming onto the stream now, is print and play straight off the bat. None of this extra elements, none of these stretch goals, not to get to this element, to get, to unlock that element, none of that. It's a straight off, you back it, you get the game. Mm-hmm. And it's that instant gratification. And this is the point I wanted to come to. It's that instant gratification of, I've just backed this game, and the week later I've got that game for something physical. Mm-hmm. That's what's genius about it. That's what's nice about it. And it's also the people behind it that's come up with the concept. They've got the mind for it. It's amazing.
Yeah. And there's certainly room for stretch goals to be used even as variants of the game. I believe as Voyages continued their absolutely meteoric rise through their own Kickstarter, they started talking about the variants and the new maps. In the Discord, they're still talking about new maps and new ways to play the game. I think some people are probably coming up with house rules, things like that. So,
we've had a viewer on YouTube, Marinus. Hi there. I hope I've said that right. The most fun for me is exploring new publishers and their concept games and seeing the progression over time. Well, yeah, I totally agree. We've been doing reviews now for since the start of COVID, haven't we, Gregor? And we've been meeting and talking to new publishers all the time, and we're talking to Chris as well. And it's lovely to see all these different concepts and all these different games, particularly ones we've never come across. How do you feel about that?
I think it's really important to remember that what we're creating is fun. We are a fun factory. We are a feeling factory. We get to make fun for either a living or a hobby. Freaking cool, man. So there's that.
Yeah.
But there's also the thought that there's all of these different ways to experience a game and to create the concepts of a game and use them in different combinations and so on like that.
We've got another question from Simon, again on YouTube. Thanks for watching. You mentioned cutting paper. Would you be interested in looking at creating games like Exit, the game one-shot games?
Yes. Make that, submit it to me. Let's bring it on. Obviously,
go, Simon.
There you go. Yeah, I definitely like the idea of an escape room style game that involves you cutting the paper or folding it as you go. Designing that might be challenging as a playtest, if only because especially if you're doing this in a virtual environment, it's harder to manipulate these pieces of paper in the virtual systems. So my encouragement here would be to playtest as much as possible in the physical space and then talk about the systems in play. Once you've done X, you'll go to step Y. After completing step Y, you'll realize step X and Y will both help you lead to answer Z, for example. So talking about the systems in play, almost talking through the choose your own adventure style tree that you get of the different directions you might go with that. The other challenge would be that the person printing the game may have some sort of an advantage because they've seen accidentally or intentionally the answers of the board. It probably won't make too much sense as if it's obfuscated in some way. But it's a consideration that we'll have to have as we're making the design. And it's a consideration that's we're thinking about. So if it's a lot of text that says, the big twist, then hopefully they'll forget that by the time they come to play it. But hopefully the the puzzles and the challenges are physically using the paper in different ways. And if we like the idea, we'll absolutely be working with you to develop it and make it the best possible game it can be. So definitely, please do make that. Please send it on. As a bonus at the end of the day, I mean, what do you do with most exit style, escape room games? You have to throw the whole box away, or you pass it on to someone else, hoping you can use something, the rest of the materials in some way. It's a $15 thing down the drain. Maybe you can reuse the cards for another prototype or something, but once you're done here, you've cut out 3 pieces of paper, chuck it in the recycling bin.
Yeah.
An evening of fun had with 3 pieces of paper and $5.
Simon says I've been running a D&D game now for just over a year now. Okay.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah. That's very cool, Simon. Where are you going with that? I'm guessing there's another part of that question. Or is you just telling us that you've been playing for D&D for over a year? Because I'll tell you now, that's a commitment in itself.
It is, yeah.
I've not heard or seen any tie-ins of role play with print and play. Have you?
Mm-hmm. I know that there are some definitely some challenges out there, either like the 1-page RPG challenge. I think there was one that was like a 500-word challenge. We're not currently going in the direction of RPGs, but there's definitely room out there to kind of use either the page limitation or a word limit as an interesting limitation to writing the RPG, to creating these scenarios that other people can use to, make something happen.
Oh, okay. I think he's come up with this second part of his thing now. So I've been thinking about creating a choose your story D&D-esque game, just not sure where to start.
Okay.
Any advice for him?
Yeah, well, I can't really speak to RPGs. I've been meaning to get into that, but my wife and been nomads and not really in one place for long enough to commit to a full-on campaign. But the thing about Choose Your Story Adventures is that we have to be conscious of not having too many choices because of the exponential growth. Once you've made 5 choices, each one of them having 2 options, you get to a lot of different branches that have to be written out. So ideally, some of these branches kind of interweave in some way. If you're doing something like Paul Stapleton has done, his games have a branching narrative, but they also have dice and they have different ways that you can go with it. So, the book might say if you have 3 or more shield, go to entry 87. If you have, if you don't, go to this thing instead. If you rolled a 5 on your attack, do this. Yeah. So obviously you want to avoid making a super huge narrative, but that's where interweaving the stories can come into play.
Yeah. And
also,
an example
maybe I'm spoiled by excellent DMs in my own experience, but most D&D campaigns are choose your own story to some extent, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sorry, I got in the way of whatever book you were about to show us.
No, that's all right. That's okay. So there is a classic example of a choose your story adventure novel, Warlock Firetop Mountain, by Steve Jackson and Ian Livingston. It's quite an early one. I'd never seen or heard of this, and it was ironically one of our Twitter followers mentioned it, and he said how excellent it was. I got it. I played my copy, and I absolutely loved it. And I got a second copy to give out as a prize that we're offering in a competition we're going to be running, and I'll talk about that later, in a little while. But Gregor, you've got another point you wanted to make?
No, I was thinking like the possibilities that you could do with this exit style game where, like you said, I think the main challenge would be, and it's not one that couldn't be overcome, would be getting it so that the person printing it out doesn't print out the answer and then just fold it or cut it up or whatever.
Yeah.
So you'd have to use, I'm thinking like you could use a cipher maybe, like to try and, so that they would have to decode, like work it out and decode whatever the problem might be.
Exactly. And there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of ways to go with it just by looking at how escape room games like taking the puzzles and the concepts and the formats that are already kind of out there and known. You've got the ciphers, you've got the trying to put one thing in another. In any number of them, there are any number of ways to come up with that one answer. And like the exit room has the ring system where you try to line up the rings and you see the number through there. So we would necessarily need a somewhat different system of determining if your answer is correct, and maybe this information is scattered along the edges of the paper. So instead of just having like this tabular list, you've got to rotate the paper a few times. Oh, okay, we're looking for the answer for number 27. Okay, so maybe someone sees the answer, or maybe that answer somehow ties into the next thing. And it's a self-fulfilling sort of thing. So if the answer is correct, it's directly useful in the directions for the next step. Again, I haven't made this kind of game yet, but I definitely like the idea of it, and I would definitely love to see it.
You could do it with like a map, for example, and a similar thing, and like work out coordinates to try.
I mean, it was in the Sherlock Holmes movie. They worked out, where the different things had happened. There was one point here, 1 point here. And then the other 2 points here, they made a cross. And this was the location in the middle where they had to go to stop the thing from happening.
So when you say something like that, I also think of like when you see in movies where they layer multiple layers of piece of paper together to make a bigger picture. Bit like the Iron Man schematic that he has. Separate, they didn't make anything. But when you lay them over each other, it then produced the blueprints of what was the Mark 1 Iron Man suit.
Exactly.
I could see you could almost utilizing that mechanic for almost generating jigsaw puzzle style, or maybe even a locksmith style game where you've got interconnecting parts and you've got to figure out the right way on orientations of bits of your paper in order to maybe open up your lock.
Exactly.
There's all sorts of ideas.
And for anyone that's looking, if anyone is hearing this and they're going, okay, this is churning some things happening here, I'll go ahead and give you a theme idea right now. This is something I'm also playing around with myself, so may the best implementation win. I'm thinking of a heist. Thinking of your classic sort of 3-act structure heist. I have that step 1, get in, or like assemble the team and get in. Act 2 is get the thing, whatever the MacGuffin is. It's the thing you're there to heist, and then it's Act 3, get out, right? And these things necessarily have to happen in this specific order. They could not happen in any other order. So the puzzles necessarily lead you down this linear path that can go a lot of different ways. Maybe you choose the sneaking in option. Maybe you choose the brute force option. Both of those serve as good ways to do the get in part, and you might get in a different way based on the team you've collected or something else. This might be a different game altogether, but as a thing to play with, there you go.
Yeah, Simon, you make a good point. Paper layers make it slightly 3D, like you can make a 3D image by laying pages on top of each other. Yeah, you make the point that I made earlier. Yeah, no.
I've definitely seen, and when it comes to escape rooms, again, the classic ones we've all seen in the shelves, they're it's a small box, it's $10-15. I'm trying to remember the name of it now. Definitely play tested some 18 card escape room games, which uses a website to help you with the answers. So the website will tell you got the answer right, go to card 16. So there's this other component that is, you have access to as you get that game.
Yeah, no, it's very clever. There's all sorts of ideas that are buzzing around my head, and I'm sure there's lots of ideas buzzing around the heads of our viewers. So if you've got an idea and you think this is something you might want to submit across to Chris at Zebrafish Games, then you can of course do that on the website. I'll put that up again on screen so people can see it. So just bear with me.
Of course. And one thing I'll mention just while he's doing that. I'm a designer myself. I'm on a lot of the different Facebook groups. I'm the co-creator of virtual playtesting. I'm in remote playtesting. A lot of different places online. So please consider me as very approachable. If you have a concept but you're not quite ready for a submission yet, please feel free to PM, Facebook, Discord, whatever. Just to see, hey, am I on the right track with this? And I'm probably going to say yes, or maybe not. No, but I'll try to give you the straight answer you deserve for making the time to reach out to me.
Well, look, there's your Discord invite as it's currently standard. I think bear in mind that these Discord invites can expire. But if you do struggle, again, you can reach out to him also, like he just said, on this Facebook group, which is just up on screen right now. Sorry, Gregor, it's covering up your face. And then, of course, there's the Twitter for Zebrafish Games as well, which is all really useful. So go check them out, like, subscribe, and check it out. Of course, you can also see his website and the form here online, so you can go in and submit any ideas that you've got across to him. I've zipped over it very quickly because I realized it was showing my personal email. So if anyone sees that and wants to email me, that's fine. Just don't spam me. But there's all sorts of information, and you've got, of course, got all this again on the website as well, which is all here. And you can even subscribe up as well to be first in the know when your print and plays are available. Because I'll tell you what, yes. I'm intrigued, and I'll tell you what, it would be great to have you back when you have one ready to officially talk about.
Yes, definitely.
I was going to ask, do you have a rough date for when the first one is likely to?
We're hoping to have the first Kickstarter probably towards the middle of the year. We're still looking for the first game to sign. We have a couple of them that are on the cusp of being ready. Once we're ready with that, we'll do the classic contract, and then I'll put on my developer hat. I'll be working with the designer to get it ready. Tristan will do some amazing artwork for it, and then we'll get the process of getting the Kickstarter ready to go.
Brilliant. I think Simon's got one last one thing.
Yeah.
Act 3, get out of the either alarms blaring or being sneaky. How do you get to Act 3 is dependent on 2 or 3 factors like equipment, team, time of the week, when the heist takes place.
Exactly. And one thing I love about this concept of the heist theme is, I mean, we've seen it in movies, we've seen it in TV shows, and I'm sure there's been a board game or two that's talked about heists, but each scenario plays out according to what's happened in the past. So, Simon, you're absolutely right. How you get to Act 3 is going to be based on, both your team's skill, but also perhaps on just, the random sort of luck of the game. The security guard sees you at the wrong time, hits the alarm, and now you've got to silence another alarm. Or you say, well, okay, whatever, we'll make it out in time anyways. And maybe you do, maybe you don't, but that's the fun of the game.
Yeah, no, makes total sense. Well, look, I think we've done quite well for time today. I'm coming up to nearly the hour. It's crazy how quickly these streams go. You always think, sometimes, are we going to have problems chatting to someone about print and play board games? No, not in this instance. It's been absolutely brilliant. Gregor, did you have anything else before we think about wrapping up?
No, I'll let you go ahead with promoting the competition or whatever other goodies it is you have for us.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So, well, first things first, thank you for coming on the show, Chris. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you about it. Remember, everyone, you can continue to look up the information. The stream goes onto YouTube, so it's available for rewatch. If you have any questions, do jump online and check him out. Like I say, he's very approachable, very nice chap, very active on the Facebook groups. That's how we met.
Yeah.
So, look, if he's happy to talk to me, then that means he's really happy to talk to anyone. Be quiet, Gregor.
I'm done. I'll mute myself if you want.
No, it's fine. It's fine. You don't have to mute yourself, mate. It's all good. You can chat. It's fine. But yes, we've got some interesting things coming on in the coming weeks and months at Diary of a Linking Geek. So first things first, I will just remind everyone that we have got some very awesome competitions and live stream events coming up in the coming months. The most important one being that we are going to be raising money on May the 4th. Yes, happy Star Wars Day. You can find all the information. It'll be coming online on the website very soon. That's not live yet, but we are raising money for Alzheimer's UK, a very worthy charity. And of course, we're going to be doing that on May the 4th. We're going to be doing our traditional 24-hour live stream. We're going to be playing board games in person this time, guys.
Ooh.
We're going to be getting together as the Diary of a Lincoln Geek team, and we're going to be live streaming over 24 hours. I will try and stay awake for the whole thing, but we've got a group of us that will jump in and out and play games. So it'd be great to have you guys come along and join us. Secondly, today is also our podcast live day. Our brand new podcast is out there now. The bi-weekly is uploaded and ready to listen to. You can go and check it out. You can get to it on our website, but it's also available on Apple Podcasts as well as Amazon Podcasts as well. Links again on the website. We chatted with James from Needy Cat Games. It's actually a really good podcast, really eye-opening. He's a local Nottingham designer, so go check that out. He's even offered a discount code for his board game seminars. So if you're interested in board gaming seminars, you can go check that out and use that all-important discount code for that as well. And then finally, like I said, we've got an amazing competition coming up to announce a new feature on our website. So you guys can now contribute content to Diary of a Lincoln Geek in the form of written reviews or articles. So if you don't have a medium for yourself to do these things, and you go, you know what, I'd really like to have a go at doing a review, then of course you can submit them to us and they'll go on the website after editorial. Our word nerd and rules lawyer will happily read through those and make sure they're all edited accordingly and put images with. But you can do that through the site. There's going to be an article coming through from one of our guest writers very soon to announce that live feature. So as soon as that's live and available, we'll be shouting out about it and releasing an amazing tabletop RPG competition, because we're going to be launching our RPG section on the website as well. So there's lots of really exciting stuff going on at the Diary of a Lincoln Geek at this moment in time, guys. So we're going to have a copy of this to give away, but also, as you can see on screen, Apex Astounding Thrills, a copy of that as well to give away, as well as some other amazing digital content being provided to us by some of our Twitter followers and fans. So it's a great time for some RPG content, and hopefully with that new section and release, you'll be able to have RPG content for those people that may not be particularly brilliant DMs and struggle to want to come up with your own adventures. You'll have adventures you can download yourself to work with D&D, Star Wars, role play, all sorts. Hopefully, if there's an RPG system, hopefully we'd like to eventually have a little catalog for people to be able to download. So all this exciting stuff coming, as well as UK Games Expo 2022. We're going to be there, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
I think, Chris, I don't think you're in the UK anymore, are you?
I wasn't. Yeah. So actually, I'll be flying into Birmingham on Sunday.
Yep.
So I'll be arriving just in time for AirCon and the UK and UKGE. So definitely looking forward to both.
Excellent. So that's brilliant. So yes, of course, AirCon's coming very soon. Not this weekend. It's next weekend, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. We've got loads of friends going to AirCon. We were supposed to be going, but unfortunately we all ran out of holiday. So damn shame. We're gutted, but we are going to be there at UK Games Expo 2022. And we're going to be live streaming a lot.
Nice.
So thank you, everyone. If you've enjoyed
you.
the show, please do like, subscribe, and of course share the stream. Without you guys, we can't grow, but our growth has been amazing recently. The support from our followers is absolutely fantastic. Of course, you can follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, and now TikTok. And of course, you can go check out the amazing website, which we have on screen at this moment in time. We love it. It's phenomenal. We love you all. And we, again, like I mentioned earlier, we're really thinking of everyone in Ukraine at the moment. So please, be safe out there. Take care of each other. We need to live together. Please take care. Stay safe. And all important, remember, keep gaming.
Keep gaming.
And I think we'll say goodbye, everyone. Thank you very much. It's an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
See you later.